This episode of Digging on Positivity we feature Charities animation, and this time our featurette is a short documentary about Kitwana Lion, role model, inspiration and more. Do stay until the end to find out who won that amazing Thabo t-shirt from my artwork tee store. But first, let's hop into the charities. Earlier this month I had the pleasure to be at NordicFuzzCon in Sweden, where we were all busy trying to raise funds for the Featurette Zoo. And as of making of this video, the final numbers are not in yet, but so far the counter stands at $11,998.71. Same thing with Vancouver in Canada. The staff is very busy counting all the donations, and the first estimates are around the $16,000 for Community, a organization based in Vancouver to support the local LGBTQ community. In Arlington, USA, 1,620 critters banded together to raise $8,500 for the Frederick Center, an organization devoted to help the LGBTQ community. At the other end of the world, in Kaohsiung City, in Taiwan, we had the Furry Tea Party, where they raised $3,058.04 for the Taiwan Guide Dog Association. In St. Louis, we had Gateway Furmeet, where $12,000 was being raised for Gut Your Six support dogs. And in Texas Furry Fiesta happened, and they raised $34,116 for CARE, the Center for Animal Research and Education. And now for our next point, we are going over live to It looks like a university and alternative joint forces. Well, together with their very capable IT team, they are going to host a paintball tournament. More news is soon to follow. A childhood favorite of mine, these four shelled friends have changed lore, shapes and sizes in the most wacky of extremes, from the most campy Saddam cartoons and movies in the 90s to the more serious tone in the original comics and everything in between. The new movie seems to follow the style introduced by Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and while the teaser sure makes me wonder about a lot of their creative choices, I really want to check it out. It is very refreshing to see the turtles actually being voiced by children, and I am such a sucker for the art style. I keep my hopes up and an open mind. This episode of Digging Up Positivity we are featuring Kitwana Lion, born, raised and still living near Lucerne in Switzerland. Most known for his YouTube channel, showcasing his public fursuiting adventures and convention content from both sides of the Atlantic Ocean, as well as the series Kitwana Toys, featuring items from his diverse toy collection that ranges from merchandise from The Lion King to Disney dolls, Jurassic Park dinosaur figures, and of course his various plushies. While Kitwana is not the only special need fursuiter in the fandom, he is, to my knowledge, the only one with a feeding tube. A birth defect with its official diagnosis called congenital varicella syndrome was caused by his mother's infection with the chickenpox while she was in her 3rd month of her pregnancy, and this virus also infected Kitwana before he was born. It affected the coordination between his esophagus and his windpipe, hence the feeding tube, and also attacked the right half of his face, with the result of having no vision in his right eye. Nevertheless, it doesn't stop him from living independently, from traveling, and even from fursuiting. Already before joining the fandom, some of Kitwana's interests included the Disney parks and hockey, After growing up with movies like The Lion King and The Jungle Book in the 90s, he had spent multiple vacations at the Walt Disney World in Florida. Through the years, he always enjoyed meeting the Disney characters and witnessing many magical interactions of them, and especially with children, something he never dared to do as a child, since he was pretty afraid of the costume characters in his youngest years. In November 2006, during one of his Florida vacations, he went to attend the first ever home game of the National Hockey League's Florida Panthers, his favorite team. He simply wanted to watch the game. He was there for the sport. At some point though, he happened to be in the right place at the right time for a totally random, unplanned encounter with the Panthers mascot, Stanley C. Panther. Little did he know that this moment would have a lasting impact. It was a wonderful feeling getting those few warm hugs by such a tall, fuzzy creature. It definitely did something to him. Mascotting was still not very big in Switzerland, and back in 2006, social media was only in its very beginnings, so Kitwana wasn't really aware or interested in mascots. Once he returned home from his 2006 Florida trip, he eventually began to research online about mascots and costumed characters. Kitwana watched many YouTube videos of Disney characters interacting with guests. He learned how much joy sport mascots, such as his favorite Florida Panther mascot, Stanley C. Panther, brings to people of all ages, not just during games, but also outside of their stadiums and arenas by appearing at community events, visiting children hospitals, birthday parties, and so on. Consuming this kind of content made him smile during a time he did not have much reason to do so, as the late effects of his condition caused him to be bedridden between 100 up to 150 days a year. He always asked himself, why don't we have something like this here in Switzerland? He didn't learn about the existence of the furry fandom until the algorithm pointed him to the YouTube channel of Kitwana Lion from Seattle, where he discovered one of his earliest videos from his Fursuiting with Kids series, where people in animal costumes would go out to the street or to a park to randomly interact with children to make them smile. Neither Kitwana or his friends were mascots, though it did not look like they represent a company or a sports team. He learned that they're all people that simply do this as their hobby, and from that moment he was hooked and he knew that this was something he wanted to do himself. Kitwana actually was the one beginning to exchange messages with him, and over time he even learned that there are furries right there in his home country, Switzerland. Kitwana's health condition improved that much that it became viable for him to start living and traveling independently from the middle of the last decade onwards. He got his very first fursuit in 2015 and began to start traveling to conventions and joining fellow Swiss furs on public fursuit walks. His very first personal encounter with Kitwana was at Entrocon in Pittsburgh in the summer of 2016, and from there a very good and healthy friendship grew over the years, for which he is very thankful. Finding friends as a special need person can be hard, yet Kitwana went always the extra mile to make sure that he became part and included in his social circles, which made finding more friends a lot easier, and eventually he found his own corner in the fandom. Nowadays, Kitwana owns 3 fursuits. Kitwana, his own fursona, built by Lacey of fursuiting.com. A very big honor was it to take over Kitwana Lion from his former owner, none other than his hero Kitwana Lion, his role model, his inspiration and gateway drug into the fandom. Kato basically was pretty much the first fursuit built by Snapcat under the Bycats 4Cats brand, so Kato can be considered a piece of fandom history. And just last month he received Mufasa, as his third costume. Yes, you heard it right, the most adorable, caring Disney dad ever, and the best Lion King to ever rule the Pride Lands. Mufasa was the better part of the Pride Rock brothers, a duo of fursuiters from Michigan, USA that stunned everyone with their creation and performance of Mufasa and Scar at various US conventions. Bongo Laserworks were the people behind the Pride Rock brothers, and they recently sold both of their Lion King fursuits, so he became the new owner of Mufasa. As a fun fact, he personally encountered the Pride Rock brothers at Entercon 2016 for the very first time, and he was totally over the moon meeting his childhood heroes. He made a short video about them, which ended up being the most clicked on his YouTube channel with almost 400,000 views. Little did he know back then that he would have the honor of being able to perform Mufasa 7 years later. According to Kitwana, it's an incredible, hard to describe feeling dressing up as one of his very favorite characters from Disney and seeing the reactions of everyone as they encounter Mufasa. Not even Disney owns the character costumes of any of the Lion King lions, and so much to his knowledge, he is the only Mufasa fursuit existing in our fandom. Kitwana is sure that he will experience many more moments while performing him. There have been so many wonderful moments that Kitwana has experienced in the furry fandom, but if one has to stand out, he would have picked Antro Northwest 2019 in Seattle, where he was one of the guests of honor with none other than the lion that brought him in the fandom, Kijani. He is by no means a big number on social media, not what some people might refer to as a popufur, not by no means. Yet he was able to achieve this honor, which was something completely unexpected for him. He still remembers Taiko Alsi, who attended Antro Northwest a year before, texting him in the middle of the night live from the closing ceremony saying congratulations on becoming the guest of honor together with Kijani. He was almost standing up in bed after reading that and seriously thought that he was being played. He went online but couldn't verify the message until a few hours later after watching a video of the closing ceremony of Antro Northwest 2018, where he actually saw for himself that he would be next year's guest of honor. Kitwana traveled to Antro Northwest in 2019 and even had his dad along for the ride, who is in no way a furry, but one could tell that he was very proud of his son, that he has come such a long way considering his difficult childhood due to his disability. He was there with him for most of the events of the con. Kijani and Kitwana got to deliver the guest of honor speeches in a full main ballroom, and overall it was simply the best convention weekend he had so far. It meant the world to him being able to experience this not only with his dad, but also with what he considers his best friend in the fandom. Years ago, he watched Kijani's video while bedridden at home, and he always dreamed that someday one of the critters performing with Kijani would be him. And indeed, that dream and even more became true. The main thing that made Kitwana find his place and corner in the fandom was to look out for people that share some of his exact same interests. Kijani is such a good example of this. He had so much in common with Kitwana, both being lions who love the Lion King, being huge collectors, and their love to give back to the community. This led to Kijani having to take Kitwana along to his fursuit events, Emerald City Critters in Seattle, and eventually they ended up in Africa doing volunteer work and attending a real safari. In the meantime, Kitwana also found furries that share his love for mascots. Gail Frostbane is such an example. She not only has been a mascot herself, but admires sport mascots as much as Kitwana does. They have met at conventions where he became one of her videographers for her famous Fursuiting 101 panel at Antrocon. They also are teaming up for the next NHL Mascots Showdown during the NHL All-Star Weekend in Toronto, February next year, where they will try to get close to their favorite mascots and enjoy 3 days of fun mascot games. Growing these kind of friendships was something that took him several years. It's not an overnight process, so give it some time and don't put yourself under pressure. Random hi messages don't help that much either to start friendships. Furthermore, it's very important to stay away from the drama and surround yourself by good people only. And be a good furry yourself. Do not waste your time with folks that do things or say things that make you feel uncomfortable. Good people attract other good people. Finally, use social media wisely. Be authentically yourself, not perfect. Show people what positive things you're doing, spread that joy, and stay away from all the hate and the drama that often dominates these platforms. Part of the reason why he was able to make his way becoming a guest of honor was that his social media content got noticed by the right people, which is admittedly hard work, but it paid off for Kitwana, and he is sure that if you try to follow these principles, you will have a pleasant and fun experience in our community as well. A great example on how this mindset helped him outside of the fandom happened earlier this year when he visited the NHL All-Star Weekend while attending this 3-day event where mascots partook in a fierce but friendly series of games under the hot Florida sun, this time organized by his favorite team. He got into some small talk with the staff after they noticed his huge Stanley C. Panther plushie, and this ended up with him meeting the panther in the fur. It turns out that he was already quite known around the Florida Panther office as Stanley, his special fan from Switzerland. Moments like those sure make up all the time he had to spend in the hospitals with all the doctors during his childhood, and Kitwana is more than happy to give back to the community as being a fursuiter himself. Thank you for being with us, Kitwana. As for Kijani, he will return in this show, so stay tuned for more lion goodness in the near future. And of course, thank you very much for staying with us until the very end of the first episode of the 6th season of Digging Up Positivity. Now, of course, I promised to say who won the raffle. And all the comments, I gave them a number and I filled it in the Google random number generator and I gave it a whirl, and the winner is Simple Nix. Now, you have until the end of next month to poke me through DMs. Do check out my Linktree, and next month I will have another raffle. Besides this monthly show, I stream almost every Monday on 8 PM Central European Time. Drop by and vibe with us with some art and chill beats. And if you want to meet me with a meet and greet, I will be at Diggerland UK in Devon. And the next day I will be in Cardiff at the local Furmeet at the arcade. More information below. If you want to support my channel, do check out my Artworks Tea store for cool Thabo Meerkat merchandise, or drop a coin at my Subscribe Star or Patreon like these amazing critters. Cosmic with a K, Els Dekker, Falconeo, Hansana, Ishnula, Katie, Manic, Tentru McNally, Taros, and Scorechaser. The very next episode will be on April 29th, and I'm looking forward to see you there. And remember, love you all, stay awesome, and all the hugs.